Have you ever felt completely, utterly alone while standing in the middle of a crowded room? Well, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're embarking on a pretty deep, reflective journey all about human connection, belonging, and why we sometimes feel so isolated, even when we literally have everything we thought we wanted. We're going to explore this through the lens of a super fascinating astrological placement, Ketu in the 11th house. And hey, whether you follow astrology religiously or you're just really into the psychology of human relationships, the dynamics we're about to unpack are absolutely eye-opening.
So picture this. You're at a party, maybe even celebrating a massive personal victory of your own, right? But underneath the noise, there's this strange, quiet sense of emptiness. It's that exact feeling of being a total outsider. Despite having a solid group of friends or a laundry list of impressive achievements, it can be incredibly confusing. Why on earth does external success and being surrounded by people sometimes feel so empty? Today, we're getting to the astrological root of that very specific feeling and looking at how it challenges basically everything society tells us about popularity.
All right, let's dive right into this contradiction. In astrology, the 11th house is all about networks, friendships, and those tangible rewards we get from society. Think of it as the ultimate house of collective approval. But then, on the other side, we have the planetary energy of Ketu. Ketu is all about detachment, spiritual insight, and this deep drive to move completely beyond ordinary worldly attachments. You can probably already feel the friction here, right? It's like oil and water. What the house wants, connection and societal rewards, is fiercely clashing with what the planet demands, which is detachment and deeper spiritual truth.
So, when you smash these two opposing forces together, you get Ketu in the 11th house. And what this means is you have an individual who might actually achieve their absolute biggest goals, but then they end up feeling entirely emotionally disconnected from the applause that follows. It's literally like winning an Oscar, but all you want to do is go home, put on sweatpants, and water your plants. This inherent friction naturally pushes a person away from external rewards and steers them right toward inner fulfillment. People with this placement just don't seek validation the way the rest of the world seems to. Being the most popular person in the room doesn't feel like a win. It usually just feels fleeting, temporary, or just deeply unfulfilling.
And you can see exactly how this plays out in their daily life right here. For someone with this placement, navigating large social circles and carrying the heavy weight of unnecessary social expectations, it is absolutely exhausting. It eats up a massive chunk of their energy. Because of that, they fiercely protect a tiny, precious fraction of their time for genuinely meaningful connections. For them, it is 100% about quality over quantity. They are hunting for depth, period.
Let's look a bit closer at what their actual social reality looks like. Large social circles aren't just kind of annoying, they actively drain this person's batteries. Because of this, people with Ketu in the 11th will naturally distance themselves from groups that feel superficial or circles that care way too much about status and climbing the ladder. Their personal connection style, it's highly selective, it's incredibly private, and it's deeply personal. This completely validates why they so often pull away from the crowd. It's not because they're antisocial. Actually, scratch that, sometimes they might seem that way. But it's really because they simply cannot tolerate superficiality.
But this brings us to a really crucial question. If you relate to this, I want you to take a second and honestly ask yourself, are you truly outgrowing crowds or are you avoiding connection? This right here is the core challenge. It's the ultimate test of Ketu in the 11th house. It forces you to be brutally honest with yourself about why exactly you're pulling away from other people.
See, there is a massive, vital difference between spiritual detachment and emotional isolation. Outgrowing shallow ties, hey, that's a clear sign of maturity. It means you're evolving, which is great. But avoiding all ties because you've been disappointed in the past or because you're scared, that quickly becomes a major limitation. You eventually hit this crossroads where you have to figure out if your distance from society is actually helping you grow or if it's just a defense mechanism holding you back.
Ultimately, this leaves us looking at two very different paths. One path is wisdom. This is choosing solitude because it genuinely brings you peace, joy, and clarity. The other path? That's avoidance. Rejecting connection simply because it feels uncomfortable, or maybe out of a deep fear of being misunderstood. I challenge you to look inward for a second. If you've always felt like an outsider, which path are you actually walking? Are you choosing peace, or are you just running from discomfort? Nailing down that answer is the absolute key to mastering this placement. Now, when someone navigates this whole challenge successfully, they reach what we call a balanced Ketu. And what's really amazing about this state is how it completely redefines what it means to be part of a community. A balanced individual gets that social approval is totally temporary, so they don't attach their self-worth to it. They don't need constant attention to feel valuable. Their friendships, they're based purely on shared values, radical honesty, and mutual understanding. And maybe the best part is that they often quietly support others without ever needing a shout-out or a round of applause. They are part of the community, for sure, but they're entirely free from its judgments.
On the flip side, an unbalanced Ketu presents a much tougher reality. In this state, a person feels like an outsider even when they are completely surrounded by people who genuinely love and care about them. They might cut ties or reject friendships way too quickly at the very first sign of friction. Or they might hold on tightly to this belief that they just cannot be understood by anyone else, like they're an alien on the wrong planet. They often withdraw because of past broken trust. And the real danger here? By letting fear dictate their boundaries, they accidentally create the exact loneliness they were desperately trying to escape.
So, it all circles back to this crucial point. Does public recognition truly create happiness? This placement fundamentally forces us to hit pause and question the very meaning of success. Society hardwires us to chase achievements specifically to get admired. But individuals with this dynamic have to ask themselves if that admiration actually means anything at the end of the day.
We could actually map out this massive internal shift in 3 pretty distinct steps. Step 1 is the hustle, chasing those achievements for the public applause. But then comes step 2, which is this profound, is this it realization? They get those external rewards, but they're left with this quiet, nagging feeling that something is still missing. Finally, step 3 is the breakthrough. This is where they redefine what actually matters well beyond acceptance, discovering that ultimate fulfillment really comes from purpose, creativity, and service. They literally stop working for the applause and start working for meaning.
And here is a pretty fantastic silver lining to this entire journey. By opting out of the mainstream popularity contest, people with this placement become a total magnet for the unconventional. Because they aren't trying to fit themselves into some neat, tidy societal box, they naturally attract some of the most unique and unexpected friendships you can imagine.
When they do choose to open up and cultivate relationships, the depth is just incredible. They're naturally drawn to people from completely different backgrounds than their own. They tend to gravitate towards spiritual or just totally unconventional groups that think way outside the norm. They crave deep, meaningful conversations and have absolutely zero patience for casual small talk. So while their friendships are definitely fewer in number, they carry these deeply transformative lessons. Being highly selective isn't a flaw for them. It's the exact thing that opens the door to profound, life-changing connections.
Of course, it's important to remember that figuring this placement out takes time. It is a genuine hero's journey. In their younger years, there's a lot of confusion, a lot of loneliness, and this painful feeling of just being separate from the group. But as they grow up, they learn a massive lesson. Being different is not the same thing as being disconnected, which ultimately leads to the final realization at full maturity. True belonging was never about fitting in. It's about finding the people who appreciate your raw, unfiltered authenticity. Time really does bring incredible peace to this complex dynamic.
Which brings us to the most empowering takeaway of everything we've talked about today. True belonging does not require changing yourself to fit every single crowd. External validation is a really poor, really temporary substitute for inner confidence. This journey isn't about being doomed to a life of loneliness. No way. It's about shifting your compass away from what the crowd wants and moving entirely toward what your soul actually needs.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final thought, something to help you evaluate your own social circles. Ask yourself, are you measuring your relationships by the sheer number of people around you, or by the depth, the honesty, and the meaning within them? Taking a good, hard look at that answer might just change how you view connection forever. Thank you so much for going on this journey with me, and I really hope this provided some valuable clarity on your own path to true belonging. Catch you next time.